Hey guys, as promised, it is officially July, and so I am planning on getting at least two of these building post decks put up for you guys. Today we're going to build MonoBlack Post. This is the last remaining single-colored post deck to be built. We have Rebels have been an official deck. They have won as white. Green has given us green post. We've had the red land destruction burn. And we have seen, of course, mono blue control with 8 post. So today I wanted to build black posts. Now I am a black mage through and through. It is definitely one of my favorite colors. Let me stop for a second before I go any further. For those of you who may be stumbling upon this and not know what this series is, I had written an article on puremtgo.com, and it talked about the effect of Cloud Post and Glimmer Post on Pauper. Now, in talking about that, I had said that these two cards can basically make any deck work, and I had talked about the decks that had been successful. I had also noticed there were a couple of blank spots, a couple of decks for the guilds or the colors that had not been filled in, and was determined, I'm going to do this. This was something that would have taken forever to do in an article, so I decided it is going to be something I post up as a mini series on my YouTube channel exclusively. Now, this is going to be 3 parts, so this here is going to be my building of the deck. I will throw up videos of me playing the deck, and then in the end I will throw up a video of me talking about what my final thoughts were. So, in client, of course, as always, going to sort this down to Pauper, and we're of course going to click off all the little buttons here so that only my black cards are showing, and this makes deck building so much simpler. I'll leave colorless on here real quick. We're obviously going to start out with search for locus. The easiest way I always find to start these decks is to throw in 4 copies of Cloud Post, 4 copies of Glimmer Post. Let's pile this by name. This is obviously going to be the good start. Now I've talked a lot, if you've seen my blue-white video, the amended blue-white video, you will realize that I have kind of learned and evolved in how I build post decks, I guess. So I'm going to stick pretty traditional. We're going to go to prismatic. We'll search that out for the lens. Why is that not coming up? Oh, I know why. It's not prismatic. Oh, it's prophetic. Sorry, I had a moment there. The prism is something that is used mostly in Izzet Post and Dimir Post because of the fact that it allows you to change colors. The card draw is great as a cantrip, but the biggest thing is if you're running, especially Izzet Post where you are blue and red, and you have the ability to use red mana and blue mana, using the prism will allow you to use black mana, and this is effective for the flashback of things like Mystical Teachings, which is black, and even Forbidden Alchemy has a black colored flashback. So, what I've actually learned, though, is that this is even an essential card when you're running a monocolored deck. These 2 lands produce a significant amount of mana, and this is all well and good, but at the same time when you're running monocolored, it is still especially important to be able to change some of this colored land into black. Say you've built up a pretty solid post mana base and you only have 2 swamps on the table. That means you're only able to play 1, maybe 2 spells because you need that black cost. What Prophetic Prism is going to do is, again, in addition to being a cantrip, it's going to give you an opportunity to convert some of this colored mana into black. So something to keep in mind is even if you are running a single colored post deck, these prisms are pretty much necessary. I'm also going to start using the map in most of my decks. There really is kind of a solid foundation that builds a post deck. I like to run 3 copies of map as opposed to 4. I like being able to fetch out lands, but at the same time, I don't want to be so bogged down in fetching lands that I can't do anything else. So, keeping that at 3. And then, of course, we're going to go to the biggest, baddest creature of all for Cloud Post, the Crusher. A lot of decks will run 3 if they run any. I am going to run a full 4. I think Green Post will usually run 4 copies of the Crusher, so I like having 4 available to me. There's not a lot of big nasty black creatures that I think I'm going to be able to put in this, so Crusher I think I really want to be kind of my centerfold as my most important creature, my biggest bomb creature. Now, the reason I chose to do black today was because of a single card that was printed recently. We have recently seen, let me turn off colorless mana here real quick, because I think that's all I'm going to use this for. We have just recently, and I say recently being maybe a month or two at this point, had the release of AVR. And AVR gave us Essence Harvest, and this is a card that I really liked for Pauper. I think there's a lot of ability to it, there's a lot of potential to it, and I think it could work really well in a deck that has an 8-post base. I'm going to bring in, let's put it as, I think 4 might be much. We're going to end up being, mono black decks usually are a little creature light. Like I said, there's not a lot of big ones, big creatures to bring in. So I think I'm going to run it as a 3 of. Now, Essence Harvest is something that I think is going to work really well with, especially a full set of Crushers. The Essence Harvest is a spell that allows you to deal X damage to your opponent, and then you gain X life, where X is the greatest power of a creature you have in play. So with the Crusher, that means a Crusher plus an Essence Harvest is going to do 8 damage to my opponent, and then I am going to gain 8 life. This is really great, and my other thought with this was Twisted. Search for Twisted. The Twisted Abomination is a great card. This little guy, as you can see, reprinted in Time Spiral. This card is a 5/3 regenerator, but he's not usually used because, like, as an actual creature, because of the fact that it has a 6. A mana cost that is 6. But at the same time, it is used a lot because of the swamp cycling. So I think this card will have a lot of benefits for this deck. By bringing in the swamp cycling, we are going to be able to use it to fetch out black mana, which could be more important with some of these spells. I just talked about why Prism is still important even though it's monocolored. So there's still going to be some opportunities where we may want to cycle this four swamps, sorry. But at the same time, it's going to give us an ability to gain life off of the 5 here. It's going to be, of course, less damage than the Crusher, but gaining 5 life and dealing 5 damage from a Twisted Abomination is pretty good. I only own 3 copies of it. I definitely wouldn't go more than 4. Let's see what else we can come up with here, and 3 might be a decent solution. So we also have a couple of other important things when it comes to Mono Black. Mono Black, there is a go-to card that I put in every deck, and not even Mono Black, but every deck that I run with black, and that's Phyrexian Rager. This guy is one of my favorite cards. He is a relatively, he's got the 3 converted mana cost, he's got the 2/2 power, so his power to cost ratio is pretty solid. It's rare that you will find one with a mana cost that is equal to or less than his power or toughness. And usually there's a drawback if there is. He comes in at a 3/3, and he comes in, he deals 1 damage to you, but you get to draw a card. And I think card draw is very important. I'm definitely, if you follow my series and my articles, you will know that I really love card draw. Mono Black is a pretty good option for this. Most of the card draw that we have available to us in Magic in general comes from blue, obviously. But I would say that the second best color for drawing cards in general is going to be black. If we search draw, with our filter being only black, we have a lot that comes up here. We click this off. Let me see how many there are total. There are a lot of opportunities to draw cards, as you can see. More importantly, some of these are single cantrips, they're cycling cards, but there are a lot of really good things, especially at common level, such as Sign in Blood. We all know if you play Mono Black Control, if you've played on either side of that deck, it's the best card they use for that. If you caught, it's going to be upcoming. I am going to be talking about Morbid decks and the use of Altar's Reap and that for drawing cards. There's a lot of stuff that is available to us in black to draw cards. Now, Altar's Reap I'm going to avoid here because of the fact that it needs you to sacrifice a creature, and again, I don't think this is going to end up being very creature heavy. At the same time, I think Sign in Blood is a bad choice for this as well. Sign in Blood is a great draw spell, but it does have that double black mana cost, and I think in a deck like this, where most of your mana base is going to be colorless, it's important to kind of avoid as many of these double blacks as possible. It could definitely be used, but I had a thought as well. If we turn on the draw ability in colorless, there is this here, my replicas. I'm a big fan of these replicas. Let's throw 3, let's go 4 for now. I'm a big fan of the replica, and this guy is a 2/2 for 3 3 colorless, which is great because he's an artifact. But he gives us basically the ability to cast. Oh god, I'm not going to remember the name of it. Sign in Blood has a similar card that was printed at Uncommon in 5th Dawn. The name I cannot think of, but comes in for 1. See, now I'm going to have to figure this out. So, this came in 5th Dawn, I believe it was. It was during Mirrodin block, and it has this same... There it is, Night's Whisper. And as you see, it's a draw spell where you pay 2 life, you draw 2 cards, and you pay 1 and a black. So the Replica series was a bunch of artifact creatures that were basically an artifact creature, but they also had the ability to pay the same cost as the spell that they replicated. So this has the ability to be a 2/2 creature, or you can use it as a Night's Whisper. It's a pretty strong draw ability that we have in Pauper, and I kind of like it because, like I said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of good options for... Switch us back to Pauper. For creatures in this deck. Let's look at... We got another great big creature that is available to us in Pauper, in the Welk. These Morn Welks. I wouldn't run more than 2 or 3 of these. They are really good for the discard ability. I'm not sure yet that's going to be the focus of this deck, but we'll keep it there just for now. When I build decks, I add a whole bunch of stuff and then, take stuff back. Everyone who has done a lot of deck building is familiar with the process. You just throw everything you can in there, and then afterwards, you're like, okay, well, what can I cut? What is the focus of this deck? You kind of want to have one focus or the other. Either you're doing a discard element or you're not. Having one discard spell in there is not useless, but one discard amongst a 60-card deck is just not gonna give you the same results as a deck that is focused more on that, as it's just its focus as what the deck wants to do. So what other creature? We have another. We'll search ninja because I don't remember its name. There's a ninja rat. Here we go. The Shinobi. He is not here. My cards. He is a great card. He has been used a couple times in MonoBlack. It depends on the version of MonoBlack control that you're running. I think I'm only going to run a single copy, but this gives us some abilities, especially if we use the Welk, where we can bounce stuff like the Rager. And if you return that to your hand, you get an ability to replay it again, and then you have the chance to, get an additional draw off this card. Now, I think, like I said, I think I'm only going to run one of these because there's not a lot that I want to bounce. It is a great thing, it is a nice thing to have, but I don't want it to be, again, discard as my focus. I really wanted it more for the fact that it can bounce these Ragers, and some card draw can be increased. Let's look at control options now. Like I said, I want to be kind of light on the creature base. Definitely no more than 20 at the very max. I really want to be a bit more controlling when it comes to like creature kill. That's something that Black is very good at. I have played a lot of MonoBlack control. It is one of my favorite decks for competitive Pauper. And so I want to kind of stick to that. And we get a lot of options. Let's look at Snuff Out. We get a lot of options for targeted creature kill that have this big cost. You look at Snuff Out, it has an ability to play it for cheaper, but it does come with this heavier cost, 3 colorless and a black, and that sometimes makes it see less play. But having that 3 colorless is not so difficult because we are running the post lands. The other one, Spinning Darkness. The other card that is a great option for creature kill is Spinning Darkness. And this was a Weatherlight card. You have a choice to either pay the 6, which is very heavy for its one ability, and that is 3 damage to target non-black creature and gain 3 life. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to exile the top 3 black cards in your graveyard to play it for free. So it's a really nice card. I think this deck definitely needs some extra life gain. If you look, I know I am keeping... I may not keep 4 of these replicas, but I am keeping 4 Ragers, and I'm keeping most of these replicas. So that is a lot of life that is lost, and as a Black Mage, we're more than familiar with this idea of pay life, draw cards. So I'm okay with doing so, but at the same time, I wanted the extra life gain. That's part of why I thought the Harvest would be great in this type of deck. Between that and then we'll have Spinning Darkness, and these two cards can really help us gain life to kind of negate this life that is lost to draw cards. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, you're running Glimmer Post. Do you really need that extra life gain? And I think we do. If you're running a blue version of the decks, you get an opportunity to bounce Glimmer Post. You can use them more than once. In the average game, you're lucky if you draw 2 or more Glimmer Posts. I've definitely gone through games where I've drawn only a single one, even in the blue decks. So having an opportunity to gain as much life as possible when we can only play our Glimmer Post once, I think is definitely a good idea, especially, to go with this idea that we're drawing cards and paying life. So we're going to bring in 3 of those. I think 4 is overkill. This cost is, the 6 cost is not terrible because of the fact that we're running the post lands. At the same time, it will be a little bit harder, I think, to exile top 3 cards to pay that cost, because we are running so many artifacts. The other thing is this double black cost really makes me nervous. I don't want many cards that have that because I don't want to be so reliant on black mana. The Shinobi does have a double black, but you can see that's going to be most likely, in an ideal situation at least, played for its ninjutsu cost as opposed to its actual 5 cost. So let's also Echoing Decay. Echoing Decay is something that any deck running black should have for competitive play, whether you are running it as a main deck or a side deck option. It is important to have for any matchup that is going to be Storm. Echoing Decay is basically GG against Empty the Warren Storm. I'm only going to run 2 copies in here because I think more is overkill. Let's actually, I kind of like to have 3, but we're going to put a 3rd copy into the sideboard. I don't want to be built so much that I'm focusing on beating down a particular archetype. If you focus too much on how your deck fares against one specific deck type, you're going to lose to everything but that deck type. It's like, sure, Storm is the most prevalent deck currently in the metagame. Your deck can beat Storm very easily. That's great, but what happens when the rest of the games you play are against Delver, or, they're against Infect, all these other things that now all of a sudden you can't beat because you just loaded your sideboard with options to beat Storm only. So, while we're on that topic, Echoing Decay is great, but I also like Crypt Rats. Now, this is something I'm going to use as a sideboard option, definitely. Spelling is for the win. Crypt Rats. This is something I want to use as a sideboard option only because of the fact that it is a great way to wipe the board, but this X cost that you pay for its ability has to be used with only black mana. So we'll put 2 copies in the sideboard. It's a great option to have against aggro and stuff like that. It'll work great with elves, which have made a few showings in recent games, and it'll work very well against Storm, but having it in the main deck I think is not as powerful because of the fact that you are relying on mostly colorless. We'll see, in playing games maybe I could be wrong about that, but I'm going to leave it as a sideboard option for now. I think we should look at a bit of creature regeneration. If I use the Mournwelks, I can create this situation where the evoke ability would allow me to bring them back, and at the same time the replicas. So let's go back to Grim Harvest. We saw that one earlier. Grim Harvest is another card that makes a lot of singleton appearances in like Dimir Post. It makes appearances. It makes appearances in teachings and blue-black control. MonoBlack control even occasionally will run it, but it's a really nice card because it is a single card that can come back multiple times. And that will help us get rid of, having a full set of crushers is great, but there is every opportunity for your opponent to kill one, and most, 9 games out of 10, you are not going to see probably more than 1 crusher. So if that one gets killed, you need a way to bring it back, and I think Grim Harvest will do that for us. At the same time, I want to bring in Unearth. Unearth is a great option because it gives us this cycling ability. Now, it's very rare that I use the cycling ability with it, But more importantly, this converted mana cost of three or less is going to be very helpful for getting back replicas, enragers as well if they get killed. So having that available is going to be great, and it puts it right back into play, not to our hand, and that's definitely beneficial. Let's see. So we've got a whole bunch of control. Let's kind of finish out our mana base. I want to bring in bogs. I'm gonna have to turn colorless back on. I'm going to run 23 lands. It's pretty typical for me. I'm going to use 2 bogs. Now, we have seen a lot of decks starting to consider grave control, and this is a result of things like, especially Izzet Post and Dimir Post. They are using a lot of stuff that will rely on the graveyard. They bring in Mystical Teachings, which has a flashback. Izzet Post has stuff like Firebolt that flashes back. Someone's going to flame me on that because now I'm not sure that's the right one. But you also get Alchemy. Let's see, Firebolt. Did I get it right? Yes, I did. Alright, excellent. So that has a flashback on it. You have the ability to flashback other things, such as Forbidden Alchemy, Mystical Teachings, Firebolt. You have the flashback ability on Deep Analysis. At the same time, you can use it against, effective against things like Mono Blue Control, where they are also running Deep Analysis, or if they run Accumulated Knowledge. Accumulated Knowledge is more powerful the more cards that are in the graveyard. They will also run Think Twice. So it also, actually, Storm, it has a benefit as well, because Rite of Flame increases. That was one of the Cold Snap cards, and that increases based on the number of cards in the graveyard with the same name. So definitely, I think the bogs are a great thing to have. I'm a little concerned about the fact that it comes in tapped, but hopefully that won't make too much of a difference between that and the Cloud Post. Hopefully I'll still get enough mana online as fast to be able to make plays when I can. I think having these in the main deck is really a great thing. You've even actually seen recently Izzet Post starting to bring in a single copy of the Bog in order to deal with that flashback ability. So we're going to use 2 of those, and that's it. We're not going to, because we're in a single color, we're not going to bring in one of the dual lands from Ravnica. It's just a waste. Sure, like I said, we're going to miss out on the fact that we can only play Glimmer Posts once. We can't bounce them. But I think that's going to be it for the non-basics. So let's finish this out. I wanted 23 lands, so I'm at 10. We're going to up 13 lands to this, and then we'll see what we have left. Alright, this puts us at 64 cards. So I'm thinking, I talked about keeping a deck focused on doing one thing as opposed to doing multiple things. Sometimes, it can work out where you go through this whole situation where, like, teachings can get away with this, decks that run it, and Izzet Post is one where they can run teachings and they can run a whole bunch of singleton cards that do a whole bunch of different things and are meant for different matchups, and they can get away with this from the fact that they have that tutor ability. I think the fact that we don't is going to make me take out these Mournwelks, but I definitely would keep these as a side option. Sorry, a bit of a cold here. I think I'm only going to use 2 of them, though. I think it's a good option for, control matchup and stuff like that. There's a lot of times where discard can be important, but I think having too many of them is going to slow me down. It's a nice card. It can get some good play. If you want to build this yourself and include more, definitely feel free. It's a decent card if you look past the fact that it's a 7-costed 3/3 creature. It has a lot of power, and if you wanted to build this with more of a discard focus, I think that's a good idea. And let's get the replicas down to 3, because, like I said, I like the ability. I love drawing cards, but we're going to be able to draw some cards off the prisms, and the Ragers are going to help us out with that as well. So I think 3 is fine. We're bringing in stuff like Spinning Darkness and the Harvest in order to get the life count up, but at the same time, I don't want to push it. I don't want to keep spending life like it's nothing. Let's see, what do we need to fill out this sideboard? Let's bring in some of the options. Befoul. If you look at MonoBlack control, a lot of times they are running up to 6 land destruction cards. This is for the post matchups. Now, being a post deck ourselves, I think it's important, and most Izzet posts will do this, to run a copy of, a set of a land destruction spell. They usually just run one, mostly because of the fact that they do get the option for the flashback land destruction, but I'm only going to run a single, instead of going all the way to 6, I'm going to run a full set of Befoul and use it just singularly. A lot of times I find playing in the post, it's not necessarily a mirror match, but playing someone else who is running posts, I like them having cloud posts on the field. It gives me a chance to make bigger plays. That's not always going to work out, so I am definitely going to add Befoul. It's nice to have a land control option, but at the same time I don't want to go overboard. I'm choosing Befoul over some of the other options because of the simple fact that it does allow you to kill a creature as well, which can be helpful. Bringing those in for the post matchup and then finding that you are better off using them on a crusher or something is okay. It's really nice to be able to do that. It's really a good spell. It sees, I guess, a little less play because of the cost, but again, the cost isn't going to matter to us. It is a double black, but any land destruction you get in black is going to have the double black mana symbols. So, what else? Let's, as I think about this, we could bring in another copy of Echoing Decay or Crypt Rats. Let's try another interesting. I feel like this sideboard is not going to be as tuned as it should be. Will of the Nim. I kind of want to bring it in. I'm going to bring it in. This may not be as good as, say, a second Echoing Decay for the sideboard. The Regenerate Creatures ability is usually better off in MonoBlack control because of the fact that they have stuff like the Rats, as well as the Specters. They all have 1 toughness, so if you use Wail of the Nim to do 1 damage to all creatures, then those would die. So being able to entwine that is usually why that works there, but the Regenerate is not something that we're so critical on. Yeah, whatever, we'll keep it for now. You know what I am concerned about? My creature kill is pretty good. I am running 2 Echoing Decays, I'm running a full set of Snuff Out and Spitting Darkness, and I think that's a good number. That brings me to 8 total. But I feel like this is going to be trouble. I want to avoid this whole non-black thing, so let's actually look at target creature. I want to look at options that I have available to me to kill stuff off. We'll turn off those. Let's see, we get Death's Caress. That was a recent print, and that's not so bad. The cost is heavy, but we can do that. It does work well. Oh, you know what? Faceless Butcher. This is a card that I don't think gets enough play. I want to add these to the deck. And let's adjust. This puts us back to 64. Maybe we'll run this. Let's run this as a 3 of, and we'll move 1 to the sideboard. So we do have the option to bring that in again if we want. Let's take out one of the Snuff Outs because that's one of our options for non-black only, or just non-black kill. Up in our creature count, let's get rid of one of the Abominations as well. I like them, but I don't want to go overboard. Too many high-costed creatures is going to be troublesome. Let's see, I have to cut 1 more card. What should it be? What should it be? Got the Prisms I like. Maybe the Unearth. 3 or less, that is gonna... Actually, this is... Yeah, let's get rid of an Unearth. We had taken our creatures. It was okay, we had 4 copies of the Rager as well as the Replica here. So 3 copies of Unearth is not so bad, but now that we've reduced the Replica by 1, I think maybe 2 will be sufficient. I think, and that'll put us at 60, so that'll leave our main deck pretty good. And you know what would be cool? Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's use the House Guard. This is a great idea. Kind of my big concern is that I wouldn't be able to kill enough stuff. So bringing in the House Guard will give me the ability to transmute for one of the butchers if I find myself in a situation where I need that non-black creature kill. We can bring in some other creature kill here. The butchers, they're really nice. Maybe, like I said, if I was playing competitive with this deck, I really think I would spend a lot more time developing the sideboard. But I'm going to be playing single matches, so it's not going to be as critical. I actually will not get any testing of it, but if you want to, feel free. I think we need 3 more. I think if we look for more kill, because we need some early options. Let's look at edicts. Early options for like the infect matchup. If we use 3 of those, that'll fill out our sideboard. So if we use Diabolic Edict, that gives us at least, it helps us get around in the infect matchup, things like Vines of the Vastwood and Apostle's Blessing, that will give the creature Shroud. So it's really nice to at least be able to do that, and that'll give us an option for that. Like I said, if you were, I think this is where I'm going with, if you were building this all yourself and you wanted to try it out competitively, definitely start by rearranging the sideboard. Maybe the Whale and the House Guard are a bit optimistic or just odd. But I leave that up to you to test it out yourself. I will be testing the deck, and you'll catch those videos here shortly, but if I were to sit down and do matches, I wouldn't have time for anything else, honestly, but there is some potential here. I definitely am feeling this. So here's how the deck looks. Do converted mana cost. The curve's pretty good. We do have actually quite a high curve at 6, but I'm surprised that it rolls so well down around this side of things. So, alright, there you go. This looks pretty good to me. We got our lands available. We've got plenty of creature kill, which will help us out against aggro. Creature base is 17. Like I said, I wanted to keep it low. That might still be a bit too low. But, feel free to play it out. I'm going to test it and see how it does. But you can always, as always, feel free to take it and give it your own spin. But I'm seeing this. I can see MonoBlack post being the next big thing. Yeah.